after this?
I'm open to it, but I have work. It's crazy to say because I don't really do real work, but I have work shit that's pending, and I have to see how it plays out. I'm waiting for people to email me and stuff. But I'm good for you. I carved out enough time that that we could do this podcast. That's
okay,
awesome.
cool.
We appreciate that.
We're so special. I feel so special.
Are we recording right now?
Yeah, we're recording.
Oh God! See, you gotta get. All right. Hey, welcome to another Fighter Stance podcast. As always, I'm here with Nick Buglieri or Booty Judge.
Nick Booty Judge, and we're also here with Zach as always.
What's up?
And okay, Zach usually does the intro for our special guest, and today we have an extra special guest. Probably one of the most famous people that we've had on the podcast yet. He's done a lot over the years, but here at Gracie Humaita, he's kind of just Mike, which is interesting.
That's who I am in life.
Part. Yeah,
that's who I really is who I am in.
We have Mike Catherwood.
That's like Psycho Mike. Yeah, Psycho Mike.
He wears weird shit to jiu-jitsu class
on purpose.
Yeah, I remember the first time you came in, you had like rain boots on, like Daisy Duke shorts, and like a tank top, and it was hot as fuck outside. I was like, why my man got rain boots on?
Let me tell you why.
And hold on, I also think
he also had American flag bandana.
Yeah, I also think that you wore cheater print, like furry Muay Thai shorts, and I was like, that's an interesting choice for jiu-jitsu.
I wear them pretty frequently. Actually.
Yeah, I know.
I was gonna bring them today, and I just at the last second found some grappling shorts. But here's okay. I want to make it very clear because there's a lot of like hackneyed comic guys who they get up in the morning and they're like, I'm gonna put on this zany T-shirt that says like, "Give me a beer and a poontang," and and this trucker hat that has a picture of a guy pushing a hot dog through a donut, because I'm zany. Yeah. I've never been that. I lived my whole life in Los Angeles County, and I am a guy who kind of really sticks to a pretty narrow margin of like fashion choices. Like I've been wearing Converse Chuck Taylors and flannel shirts like this since I was 7 years old, and I never really deviated from that. And then I moved to a farm in Hill Country, Texas, where the moisture / weather / amount of animal dung that I have to deal with on a moment, it's like sometimes I come to jiu-jitsu and I get out of bed and I come here and I have the ability to put on a pair of sweats, and sometimes I'm coming from just cleaning out a barn where there's like numerous species of poo.
The ability, hold on, let's recap. The ability to put on sweats. I appreciate it, bro.
Because waterproof rain boots. Sometimes, if there's any level of moisture out there, I can't walk around in just regular boots or even my tennis shoes. So then I put those on, and I'm like, am I really going to go back in the house and grab flip-flops for when I'm off the mats when I have these slip-on rain boots? No. So I just leave them on. It's like, and I'm too old to start giving a crap about what people think is cool. You know?
I appreciate you struggling to put them sweatpants on, bro.
Really, I don't know if you heard, but like basically has a giant property with a farm, and he can't be bothered to walk back to the house.
I get it.
Everything. If I don't have to do something, I'm done. It's not happening. At this point in my life, if I don't have to hang out with this dude, I don't. If Adam Carolla said this to me, right, like when I was really just getting into radio, and I was like kind of making a transition, like I could maybe do this for a living. And Adam said to me, he's like, don't ever do anything unless you really genuinely want to, or someone's gonna pay you. Don't get involved in jobs that make you miserable. Don't get involved with relationships with people that you don't like just because he's like, if you like that guy, if you like doing that hobby, go do it. If you don't like it, but someone's going to pay you, go do it.
Yeah.
Outside of that, don't do anything in your life. Don't be around women that drive you crazy. Don't be around buddies that bring you down. Just do things that you like or make you money. And I always thought that was like really good advice.
That sounds so nice.
That is solid advice.
That's like the most solid advice in my life right now, especially just because things are a little extra crazy with like the baby and whatnot. Yeah. I'm realizing I say yes to too many things, and like that's like the new thing that I need to try and do and like do less.
I did 20 years in the Army, so I could do that exact thing.
Right.
So like now, like I have a pension. I have like money is not an issue. I work here because I like working here. And it is one of the greatest things, like, to wake up every morning and be like, I stretch, I look at my dog, and I'm like, it's going to be a good day.
It's going to be a good day.
Yep.
Yeah. Pat literally has to be here for like 2 hours every day, and he's like here for 9 hours a day.
Well, today I'll be here till 8 o'clock at night. So I got here like 9:30, and then I'll be here till 8 o'clock at night because I'm teaching both kids' classes.
Nice.
And then both adult classes tonight and lunch. But again, it's something I like to do. Anyways, so you said you grew up in LA County.
Yeah.
So how was that?
It was actually a lot of people outside of California, especially. I know even outside of LA, Southern California, they make the understandable mistake of confusing LA with Hollywood. Because I always use the Laker game as an analogy. Yes, music industry, film industry, television, it's pretty gross, and there's a lot of like very fake people. There's a lot of like immorality, and I'm not gonna deny that. And there's these dudes, right? The Laker game. You go to Laker game, the first like 2 rows, it's like these dudes with leather jackets on. It's 80 degrees outside, and they have like sunglasses on indoors. And you're like, who the fuck is that? But then you realize like all other people in the whole stadium, it's like mechanics and cops, and that's including Orange County, LA County, and it's like 14 million people.
Wow.
And there's like 200 Ben Afflecks. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not. So for me, it was like super pedestrian. It was just like probably anybody else's life because I didn't grow up in like a super ghetto, like crime, like a very rough neighborhood. I had a very suburban pedestrian life. And I was 8 miles away from Dodger Stadium,
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what? So did you go to you have any college or anything like that, or you just?
I went to college, but I didn't do very much.
Like me.
I really did I wanted to be a rock star. Like I wanted to be. I didn't really want to be a rock star. I wanted to be a musician. That was the only thing I ever really had like a deep passion for, where I would spend my recreational time devoting it to a skill. Because I was a good athlete. I was always a jock. I was always playing sports.
What'd you play?
I played football, baseball, soccer, and
3-sport athlete.
I was good. I mean, I was a varsity athlete almost all 4 years.
Wow.
For all 3 sports. So I was good, but I was never like, this kid could go places with, and I was just, a lot of things that took effort, a lot of things that took focus. I just didn't do it because I was that kid. And this is before the internet, so the only kind of way you could, as a 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old, the only way you could develop your sense of identity was by what adults were telling you. Mm-hmm. And I never really thought like, well, I'm going to be a very good fill in the blank. I was like, I'm just going to try to do things that give me money in my pocket so I could go bust balls and drink beers with my buddy. And that's cool. That was but I did find like middle of teenage years, like I really genuinely liked writing songs and playing the guitar and doing things. So I tried to kind of follow the path. And
is that what you thought you were going to end up actually doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did your parents push you or support you in, well, I guess push you for the sport thing and support your passion for music?
They definitely supported athletics.
Yeah.
But they did not support anything
music.
like, not even the music, just like the arts in general. My mom grew up in East LA, super poor Mexican, like kind of classic early 20th century Mexican family. And now she has this ability to provide a very kind of almost dreamlike American Norman Rockwell painting life for her kid. And so the idea of tattoos and skateboarding and punk rock, and like she was like, "Are you fucking out of your mind? Like you're gonna join a fraternity, you're gonna go to and you're gonna play tennis and golf, and like you have this opportunity." And I looking back on it now as a grown man, because I resented that for so long, because I felt like there was my parents were telling me not to be who I wanted to be. But now as a grown man, I look back and I was like, "Oh, fucking makes a lot of sense."
Yeah, but I feel like
Just finished our first Friday Hero Jiu-Jitsu class. Right after this, I gotta go shoot a podcast. So what's gonna happen is, as soon as I get done, so that I don't get ringworm or staph, I'm gonna use my defense wipes. When I get home tonight, I'm gonna use my defense soap. It's going to keep me from getting staph and ringworm and all the gross things you pick up from the mats, okay? Thanks for coming. Come to Heroes Jiu-Jitsu. I'll see you guys on the mats. Hey, I'm fucking shooting a goddamn commercial.
Like that's like, and through your teenage years, kids always want to like rebel or do their thing. And I feel like especially like how old were you when you, or not how old, what like time frame was it when you were in like high school? Like, was it like the 90s?
I graduated high school in 97.
Okay, so yeah, so you were in that punk rock era, like grunge, like all that kind of stuff. So like I could see like you pushing towards that because a lot of kids did. I did too.
Yeah.
But like my dad was the same way. It's like, you're gonna play sports, you're gonna go play football in college or wrestle, you're gonna do this, that, and that. I was like, I guess, but like, that wasn't like
it was, and there's no downside because those things, like the sense of community you develop with athletics and the sense of understanding that no matter how good you are, you need to learn to work as a team. Yeah. That's why I always said, like, football may be the most dangerous. American football may be the most like unbelievably devastating physical thing you can do. But out of all sports, I took more away into regular life. Yeah. And I would, maybe if I wrestled, I would have that too. But with football, like I definitely learned things that I took away into life. You know, that helped me.
I think it's crazy to see these super athletes now playing football, and we're like, CTE is a thing now. We all know it is. But like you just see these dudes get like drilled, and you're like, oh my god, like how is that 6'4", 230-pound super athlete not killing someone?
Well, they change the rules every year. The NFL. And like you see, okay, because of the way the athletes have changed, the NBA is a completely different game than it was in the 1960s, right? But they haven't changed football enough to make up for the fact that there's literal science experiments smashing. You know what I'm saying? Like punters.
Yeah.
Would be like linebackers in 1970.
Yeah. I mean, look at Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Like, like that guy is, he's a freak of nature. He's huge and just trucks people. And you're like, how is that guy just not killing someone every other game?
I remember I did this same
weight
stupid,
class, Pat, same weight class.
stupid celebrity flag football game, right? Yeah, it was for charity. Yeah. But they invited me, and I was like, hell yeah, I'll do it. Because like the players and the coaches, it was like Warren Moon and Joe Montana and Jerry Rice.
That's awesome.
And so but there was also like, this was probably 2010. So, like Cam Newton was there. Peyton Manning. Like the NFL sponsor. This was a big deal.
Yeah.
And like I was by far like the shittiest celebrity, but I was on the radio in LA. So they're like, do you want to do that? And I was like, hell yeah.
It's easy promotion too, right? Yeah. So I could see it, but also you're also a super athlete, bro. I've seen you do this.
Well, it turns out they were in a panic because they were inviting very successful celebrities, like very popular people, but only like 5 of them could run at all, and let alone play football. Like run a pattern, and you're out of your goddamn.
They get Ozzy Osbourne up there. Like.
It was like a lot of like I remember like Eva Longoria was there and stuff like. And this is like. Desperate Housewives time. So it was a big deal. Yeah. But like Eva Longoria's not gonna play flag football very well, Yeah. So I remember Joel McHale was there, and Joel McHale was an athlete. Like Joel McHale was balling out there, and then I could run patterns, I could do things, right?
Yeah.
But I'm out there, and I got the chance to like go in the locker room, and I'm meeting all these, and Joe Montana's there, and I walk up to Joe Montana, and he's not noticeably any bigger than me. And I'm like, you are one of the greatest NFL players of all time. Yeah. And granted, he's older, but he's probably 6'1", and maybe it was 175, 80 pounds. And then Cam Newton walks in. I was like, holy fucking shit. Oh my God. Yeah. Like that. I was like, whoa. He's like, you're gigantic and ripped.
Monster.
Yeah. And ripped and runs a 4 seconds forward. I was like, oh my God, what is that?
Yeah. So that's the difference though. So Joe Montana era was like the 90s. Cam Newton's there. Like, I don't know what switched and what happened to get super athletes like that. Yeah. Like, it's insane.
It's everything too, though. I mean, not even just drug. You could say drugs. It's that the science, and also every year in all facets of life, but it's very, very noticeable in athletics, is that not only do we learn techniques that are effective, you start to learn what doesn't matter, right? Like and then they can fine tune. It turns into the more and more it turns from a shotgun to a sniper rifle. The things that we do as the years go by, and I see it in bodybuilding is a really good example because the 60s, 70s, where the golden era, what the people call the golden era bodybuilding, they're just doing what they heard their buddy or they can see works.
Yeah.
But it was still very like, well, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
And every year it just gets more and more narrow. They start to understand rep ranges with the exact amount of carbohydrates to spike the insulin to do this. And so you just learn what matters and what doesn't. On top of the techniques that work get so refined. And it just gets crazy how good the most elite people of all kind of aspects of athletics have never been better. There's never been people who jump higher than the people who jump high now. There's never been people who run faster than the people who run fast. Fill in the blank. Lift, bench press, deadlift, everything. The best of the best have never been better.
Yeah.
But the average dude has never been a bigger pile of shit.
That's so. I mean, I think that's the crazy thing that right now, like, if you look at like the average dude back in like the 60s,
Yep.
like hard as fuck, bro. If you look at the average dude right now, you're like, bro, you couldn't walk up a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing that the separation of like normal dude, super athlete.
This is also going down too.
Oh yeah, 100%. Right?
Yeah. And that bothers me a lot because like more and more, a lot of people get annoyed by what is looked at as like woke stuff, right?
Hey, hold on one second. Nick, can you go turn off that AC? I'm getting it in my head, but just we'll keep going, but can you just shut that off? I can hear it. Sorry. Anyways, go ahead.
So people, more so than anything, they just get annoyed by it. They're like, well, that seems silly and that bugs me. But what bugs me more than that, what upsets me more than anything than when it comes to what is looked at as like super progressive kind of ideas right now, is that I always worry that it's just another reason to lower standards. And I find that to be the most denigrating thing you can do, is to lower the standards for someone.
Look at the military; they're doing it.
I was about to say the same thing. You want to talk about an organization that used to that's had decently high standards? It's like the military. Like when I came in, like it was rough, and I just see it over the last 20 years of it just getting easier and easier and easier. They came in and tried to make something more difficult. That I can't remember what it's fucking called right now, but the new PT test, the combat, whatever it is, right? And that I did that shit. It was like it was difficult. It was hard. Like you got like baby deer legs after you did the sprint dragon carry. Like you'd like do your last like lap and you'd be like, oh shit, fuck. And everyone did it if you tried. Like everybody got baby deer legs. And they were like, oh no, that's too hard. We're going to get rid of it.
And that worries me. And that happens. I don't even want to make the choice to go into serious topics when you talk about certain races or certain gender. You know, you talk about like, oh, they're lowering the standards for women to do blank, or they're lowering the standards for Black Americans to do blank. Let's just keep it to things that are like we could. I was watching a video the other day of behind the scenes of the Batman movie with Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. Okay,
yeah.
And there's a scene in this movie where she walks in as Catwoman with her whip, and it's like I think it's Bruce Wayne's mansion, and she whips off the heads of these statues. Okay. So they're showing the behind the scenes of filming this. And Michelle Pfeiffer walks in with a whip and goes, "Watch God!" And from like 10 yards away and hits the head on one.
She really did it.
Watch God! Hits the head on the other, hits the head on the third, and then the guy goes, "Cut!" And everybody, the cameraman, the gaffers, they're like, "Yeah!" And she's like, "Fuck! Hockey goal!" Like this. Like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And I first off, I was so impressed. But then I thought to myself, if they made that movie today, they wouldn't even explore the idea of teaching her how to use a whip, and they just like CGI that shit. They would, you know, the standards of what they asked for. Sarah Connor, if you look at what Linda Hamilton did for Terminator 2 with her physique,
dude. Yeah, she
now
went
what
all
they
in.
what
She
they
went all in,
ask
dude.
of action stars today, like you see it with some guys, like The Rock's setting standards. Jason Statham's amazing, but a lot
Chris
of times,
Hemsworth.
what you see with they're just like, oh. Phil, I'm not gonna name names, but you're like, oh, you're just kind of not fat. Like I can see you, like you work, you know, you showed up as an action hero, and like you're not overweight. That's but what they made Linda Hamilton do is like that. Those were the standards. That's where they set it, and now that's like, well, let's just lower that.
Yeah. Also, though, it's that thing with like, so you're not jacked. You're just like almost anorexic, skinny, like Twilight, like Robert Pattinson. You're looking at that dude, like there's like. come on now. And then the guy from Dune, like whoever that dude, that
Timothée
kid,
Chalamet.
Yeah, that kid, like strong wind or strong breeze is gonna knock that kid over. Like I think what's her name, Zendaya, is bigger than him.
She's so like she's like there's girls that are frustratingly hot.
Yeah.
Like there's girls that I find attractive and I like to be around them. I like to see them.
Yeah.
Then there's girls that get to a level where it's like I don't know why it makes me want to like rip my dick off. Like I was like I can't rip my.
I wish I can control alt delete you out of my mind.
It's like life ruining.
Yeah.
But Timothée Chalamet and Robert Pattinson are good examples. Like those guys are not giving off a vibe of like excessive masculinity, but at the same time they're both super talented.
Yeah.
Right?
Also,
so it's like go do your thing.
Robert Pattinson in the Batman movie, like he got a little beefy, put a little muscle on. I was like, I could see that.
But he's good. He's good.
Yeah.
Right. But here's another example. The standards they made Christian Bale, who's as good an actor as anyone working. No, you can't. You could throw out Daniel Day-Lewis here. Christian Bale's as good as anyone that's on camera. They still made him get jacked for Batman. They still made him get shredded to be Patrick
he got
Bateman.
super
Also, though,
jacked.
he got out acted. Heath Ledger.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, just
okay.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I think, like, if you look, like, again, Christian Bale, amazing, American Psycho, like everything, like Christian Bale's he's the best.
Yeah.
But then you put him in a movie with Heath Ledger, who Heath Ledger was, he's good, right? He was in some good movies. And then you make him the Joker. And it's like, is it because the Batman was less interesting than the Joker in that
It could
movie?
be the character.
Or is it because Heath Ledger goes, fucking send it, bro?
Yeah. Well, it's also, I think a lot of times it could be the character, right? It could
be both.
Sometimes like the person who Heath Ledger was and what he did to become the Joker is different than, because like you look at like Leo DiCaprio. He's a super talented guy, and I wish him the best and everything. But like when he was Jordan Belfort, you're like, whoa, like that's a different. It's something about that character of him playing like this almost Gatsby-like figure and just so rich and so reckless, and you're like that. Something about that made him come to life. I feel that way about Christian Bale with American Psycho.
Yeah,
I still watch that to this day, and I'm like because that could have gone so wrong.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, you're saying there wasn't a stretch for DiCaprio to become a rich guy. So you're saying it wasn't a stretch for Christian Bale to become like a psycho?
No, it wasn't. Maybe, but I think what it was is like something about his decisions. And Christian Bale is a person, and he's an admittedly kind of an isolated guy. He's been an actor since he was a little boy, and so he grew up in the industry, and he probably developed some sense of having a crisis of identity, right? Because he's been playing pretend since he was a little boy. And so he has to be this 80s yuppie, exceptionally narcissistic person who's so overly consumed with his presentation and his identity. Everything he does is intellectualized. Maybe it was a beautiful exercise for him to kind of create this character. Because what you look at American Psycho, that movie as a dark comedy, it could have gone so wrong.
Yeah.
And for him, like, to do what he did, you're just like, I'll watch this all day. You're moonwalking in a raincoat, about to blast Jared Leto's face open. Come on.
Yeah. So there's movies though that you watch now.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know if I would have watched this when it came out, if I would enjoy it as much.
Oh, yeah.
Like Big Trouble in Little China. Like if I watched it back then, I'm like, this movie's weird. But I watch it now, I'm like, it's my favorite movie.
It's just so amazing. But also, they would never make that movie.
No, God, no.
Never make
There's a whole bunch. Like,
There's so many movies they would make now.
But I look at like again, like I look if I would have watched it back then. Like, would I enjoy it as much as I enjoy it now, right? Like, so, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the one with Matthew McConaughey in it. Like, if I watch it back, it's corny. I don't want to watch it. I watch it now, and I'm like, I get down to that shit.
Yeah. Well, I think you appreciate, as an adult, you get past that age, you'll see, you're right at that point. No, seriously, you're right at that point, Nikki, like, where you're going to start to recognize, and it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. I don't like a lot of things I thought I liked, and I do like a lot of things I thought I didn't.
Interesting.
Because you have a child now, and you're getting older, and your male ego kind of like does this weird shift where you're always gonna have male ego.
Yeah.
but it goes like, whoa, this is important to me now. And then
Especially having a daughter, bro.
Yeah.
Like having a daughter, a lot of the things that you thought like that you really, really gave a fuck about, you're gonna learn you don't give two shits about those things anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's like
examples. Sorry to put you guys on the spot.
yeah.
I have a good one off the top of my head.
There we go.
yeah.
You know how when you're all guys, you have that feeling of like, oh, when my daughter brings that guy home and I'm going to be there with the shotgun. I don't feel that way at all about guys her age asking her out. There's going to be guys that are going to take her out. They're going to try things on her. They're going to break her heart. Sexual stuff happened. It's not a super comfortable thing to talk about with my daughter, but that's it makes sense to me. You know what I do worry about? Guys my age.
Yeah, it's true.
Talking about my daughter, getting into my daughter's DMs when she's 16.
Wow,
I consumed by it. Like
Yeah.
I was like, "What's up with that?" Everything. Her teacher at her school, she has a very small, collected, kind of very weird STEM school where her teacher is a male who is in close contact with her all day with only like 5 other kids, and he's a great guy, and I trust him implicitly. But there was a moment where I was like, "What's
this guy up to?"
with this guy?" You know.
And the thing too is when you're like. When my daughter was young, like it wasn't the same. Now that she's like 15.
Yeah. Oh God,
And
I can only imagine.
Yeah, she's tall, she's beautiful. So now like we go to the movies. Before it was like, oh, she's cute, but now she has like a big T-shirt on and like short shorts. And I'm like, go put pants on.
But do you agree though, like when 15, 16-year-old boys are gawking
Yeah,
at
yeah.
it, you go like,
Also though, too,
I don't like it, but that's life, you know?
Well, and also too, it's the thing where like if I had a clean a shotgun when he came home, like maybe that guy that you do that to is the nice kid that you're gonna scare off, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like I want that nice kid who would be terrified of that. Like I'm never going to. I want that fucking kid to be like with my daughter, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would like them to date. I don't want that kid who's like fuck that dude. I don't want that guy to be the guy who dates my daughter.
That makes sense.
It's true.
Yeah. I don't want to scare those dudes off.
People always say, I just was on my friend's show, a Jason Ellis show, back in LA. And one of the other hosts, he was like, but I'd rather be feared than respect, or respect and fear. We were talking about that. And he's like, in the end of the day, isn't really the same thing. And I was like, no. Let me give you an example. I used to buy drugs from dudes I was so unbelievably, cripplingly is scared of them. I'd go buy meth in the high desert from open neo-Nazis, like big shaved head white dudes, and they were terrible dudes, and they would hit women and they would kill animals, and they were just, and I was so freakishly scared of them. And I didn't respect them one bit. That's true. I did not, zero respect. I think they're scum, you know?
I think that like as you get older, you find out that is a thing, right? Like it's difficult. Also, I used to be the biggest Jason Ellis fan. I still am, right?
Yeah.
But like what was it? Red Dragon?
Yeah.
Oh my God, bro.
Like Jason and I have celebrity acquaintances, and then I have friends. Jason Ellis is my close friend. I love him, you know?
Yeah, he's awesome. I also I remember that he had that was it Sirius XM radio or Sirius radio where like I used to pay for it just to listen to his show.
A lot of people did. It's
Yeah.
weird. Sirius isn't I don't want to get too inside baseball, but that's a weird place. Like
Also,
the idea.
stop calling me. I'm not going to get it anymore.
Well, it's like for a while there, the subscription model seemed so beautiful because you're like, I'm so tired of terrestrial radio and the commercials and hearing the same 10 songs over and over again because they have to please a broad. I can go and listen to 60s rock. I can go listen to hip hop. Sirius is no commercials. And then the internet happened and podcasts and smartphones. And now you're like, fuck Sirius. Like, this is stupid.
Yeah,
you know?
I could not pay anything and listen to I play Pandora when we roll and I don't pay for the premium service.
Yeah.
People are like, you don't pay. I was like, no, I don't. Listen to the commercial. Shut up.
I pay for
go on
shit.
YouTube.
I pay for nothing.
Yeah. So you graduated high school.
Yeah.
And then you wanted to play music.
I did.
So listen, you come to my jiu-jitsu class, and you're a nice guy, but I don't know I know that you were on radio because he told me, but I don't know. Like I haven't done the research because I wanted to do this and find out about.
Yeah, I desperately wanted it, and I wasn't going to be one of those guys that like just carried a guitar case around so that I could say I was a musician. I wanted to do it, you know? And the worst possible thing that could happen is like I got into a band that had some level of success so that I could justify doing it. I moved to the Bay Area and I kind of went down that path. And then it just made me realize like it was a bunch of guys who were in their late 30s and stuff. I was 18, 19 years old. And then they had really bad alcohol and drug problems. And then I kind of got into that and I thought, like, well, this is part and parcel for what being an artist, And I already had genetic predisposition as I'm an Irish Mexican down the middle. And like, I don't like to point out other people, I'm like, because that's their story. But my family has a lot of alcoholism and addiction going back a pretty good amount of time. So I knew that. And I also knew like I liked it going in. Even just like being like, Saturday night parties, with the football team. Like I loved drinking and I was good at it. I was really good. I was really good at it.
I'm a professional.
Yeah, I had a high tolerance and I was good at it. And I was never a violent drunk. And I was never, I had pretty profound insecurities. I had real problems with, and I also have a pretty high level of intellectual curiosity and awe for the world around me. And I would get drunk and I would get high, and both things went in the opposite. Like all my insecurity went down, and all my level of awe and curiosity got enhanced. And I was like, "Well, what's the problem here?"
Yeah.
And so that worked until it didn't, and I got way more caught up in the lifestyle than I did in actually making music. Moved back to LA, kind of told my parents, gave them the rundown, and they're like, "Well, how about you do normal life for a while?" I was like, no problem. So
was that difficult?
Yeah.
Was it difficult? I mean, not doing normal life, was it difficult to go back home and be like, hey, like,
yes,
yeah.
It was, but I also I was so young.
Yeah,
I was still, though I knew I had the world ahead of me, and I was like, I'm still gonna be a rock star. I'm pressing reset, and I go back to LA, and it's like I started working at this rehearsal studio where there was like really good bands rehearsing. I got another job, I worked at a community playhouse where they were putting on plays, and at the same time I was selling women's shoes at Nordstrom's, and I was like around a lot of hot chicks. And so dream. Like life wasn't hustling. It didn't present to me as like my dreams were over. I was like, I'm just shifting gears to go. And so then my dad owned land in Central Coast of California. He loves food and wine, and so he bought land and started growing wine grapes. So I moved to New Jersey and I went to Rutgers because there's UC Davis on the West Coast and Rutgers on the East Coast as far as like agricultural economics and agricultural studies. So I went to Rutgers and I started studying agricultural studies and stuff like that. But the whole time I was just immersing myself like that. You were talking 2000. The East Coast kind of like metalcore and punk scene was exploding. I was going to like My Chemical Romance's first show and then going to see Thursday the next night, like in like little bars, Dillinger Escape Plan and stuff like that. It was crazy and it was awesome and I was like, oh, this is where I'm going. Never went to class, and my addiction just spiraled because I was always a stimulant addict. And there was some weird thing where I could find a rhythm. Mm-hmm. And it would keep me going, right? It was obviously not a good idea if you wanted to accomplish things in life to be smoking crack cocaine and smoking meth.
Did you see a difference between the party scene, which I'm sure there is, well, the one you were involved in California compared to the one you were involved in New York? Absolutely.
And that's why it got so dark, because I got to the East Coast and I was like, so where's the meth at? And they're like, what?
Yeah.
Meth? Yeah. Crazy? But here's some pills and heroin.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's better than nothing. But I
can't not party.
Right. So this is not my gig, but give me some. So, but then I realized you could easily get cocaine. So I got a lot of blow, and I would start cooking rocks. And then I met this guy. This guy's named Adam. He was a gay guy, and he was wealthy, and he was older, and he took me in, and I would just party with him, and he would smoke speedballs, and I'd never done that. And I was now smoking crack, but with heroin in it. Fun. And I would go to the hospital and overdose so frequently, not like every day, but enough that it wasn't weird when I would wake up in the ambulance.
That's usually a horrible thing.
That's a horrible sign when ODing is no longer a weird thing for you.
It was, and the paramedics like knew you, like, oh, hey, Mike.
And I got to the point too where I would wake up in either on the floor and people were doing emergency medical service to me, or I'd be in the emergency room, or I'd be in the ambulance. And I really realized, because intellectually I had made that kind of aware. There was a level of awareness intellectually, from a purely left brain level, that this was bad, that I was going to throw my life away, but my heart wasn't kind of in it. And then there was this real awareness that I was pushing the envelope, and I was very close to dying all these times that I was ODing. And I was like, I actually can say I wouldn't be all that bummed if I did die. I'm not all that consumed with saving my own life. Like, it's, I guess but I don't have much to live for, and I'm not looking forward to every day when I wake up, except for drugs. And if my heart did stop beating, it really wouldn't be that bad. And that something about that scared the shit out of me. So I tried to get clean, and I got into a recovery center out there. And like 40 days, 50 days out of that place, I got high again. So I moved back to LA. I was in panic mode. Have to move back in with my parents, and I'm like, really, that's when I started to get that sense of like, oh, my dreams are over.
How old were you when this was going
21.
on? That's a rough time to have that realization, but at least like, at least it's.
I mean, it's still early.
Yeah, but like at least you had the self-awareness to be like, I need to get the fuck out of here.
I did, and I got back, but then I just got back on the horse when I was in LA. There was a couple weeks here where I'd smoke some weed and like have a beer, but I was like, okay, we got it. And then inevitably I got back into it, and then I had this one final day of just being by myself in a motel, and I saw myself in the mirror as I was at the end of the bed, like cooking rocks and like watching Jenny Jones.
It's like a great show.
My life means nothing. I'm watching daytime television in a seedy motel. And I had this weird feeling. I just happened to glance at myself in the mirror, and I walked around the hotel bed to the credenza there and opened it up. Again, I remember this is before smartphones. I got out the yellow pages. I started calling rehab centers, and I found a place that had a bed. And the next call was to my parents, and I was like, I found this place, Pasadena, they can take me tonight. I really want this time. And then I went in that night, and that was it. That was October of 2002.
Wow.
And you haven't.
Nothing. No. Yeah, I've been clean since. It'll be 20. You guys do the math. 22 years.
22 years.
22
Yeah,
years.
that sounds right.
In
Congrats.
October.
Congrats, dude. That's awesome.
That's amazing.
So then I fell into radio because of that. I fell into radio because I got out of rehab that time.
Was it music still a thing, or?
Yeah, and I was like, I'm gonna be. It was my friend in radio, Dave, the King of Mexico, Dave Sanchez. He's a good guy, but he always said you're like the entertainment Happy Gilmore, because I built this career, and I was still like, but I'm not a golfer, I'm a hockey player. And but I got a job at this rehearsal studio immediately out of getting the same one I had worked at before, and then I got a job I was putting together like regular guy jobs to pay the bills, because I was like, I'm not going to live with my parents. I don't care if I have to live in the shittiest spot. I just want to make my life. So I started getting as many day jobs as I could. And one of them was like entry level, like bottom of the barrel, drive the jocks around, clean up after people at the radio station at this place, KROQ in LA. And I was like, well, if I'm going to get a manual labor job that I hate, that's cooler than, man, I might run into, Dave Grohl or something.
Yeah.
So I got a job there, and no connection to actually being on the air. But I started just being myself. I started prank calling the morning show and doing like stupid stuff, boneheaded stuff around the station. And they hired me. And then that was like 2003-ish. And I just got into it. That was how radio came about,
So how we know you and see you now and all your ridiculousness, is this how you've always been your whole life?
Yeah. This sounds so corny because it's not like life-changing work. I'm not a surgeon saving children, but it was really meaningful for the first time in my life, because I'd always been the kid. I don't know how to express this without it sounding like the stupidest shit ever, but I got so invested in pranks and not only pranks like ruining people, like vandalism. Pranks. Yeah, like being the class clown really meant something to me. Like I really got a charge out of it, and everyone, my whole life was adults telling me stop it. The coaches, teachers, parents. There was always like, dude, will you fucking stop it? And I just kind of fell into this world where people were like, that's great. Do that more. And you're very good at that.
Yeah.
Please do that. And I was like, really? This is amazing. And it seemed magical to me that other adults who are successful in this field, they're like, yes, do that more.
Yeah.
When you prank called us and nearly derailed the show this morning, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
We love that. And I'm like, so then it was just manna from heaven. And I took off from there,
That's awesome.
So when did you go from the radio to like doing like Dr. Drew and all that kind of stuff?
Television happened weirdly because
seems like all of this has happened weirdly, but it also is your personality that kind of made it happen.
Well, there is that because I am Forrest Gump like in that I never wanted to be on television.
Yeah.
Like I always, especially growing up in LA, you get this real sense of defensiveness if you don't want to be in the entertainment industry for the entertainment industry. Like it was always like those douchebags that were that on this side of town. And I was like, I had no desire to host these shows and be on TV. And so people would get really angry almost that I wasn't willing to be like so over the moon happy when I could go be like, auditioning for this stuff. I'd be like, okay, you're taking time out of my day of writing fart jokes. You understand?
Going back to your other thing though, too, right? Like you don't want to do anything that you don't want to do.
I
So,
don't.
like, why would you do it?
I don't. And people couldn't because so many millions and millions and millions of people every year so deeply want to be on TV.
Yeah.
Or, in the entertainment industry. Like it was almost as if like I was putting on a facade. They're like, you can stop now.
Yeah.
We know you really want to fly to
Who
New
wouldn't
York
want
and
this?
audition for Good Morning America. I was like, no, I don't. I really don't. I mean, you'll pay how much? That sounds intriguing, but let's be clear. Like, there's got to be someone graduating from a broadcasting school right now who would cut their fucking leg off to do this job,
Yeah, but do you think that like your life experiences at that point and like what you already been through and kind of everything that you were on the East Coast, then on the West Coast, West Coast, East Coast, back to West Coast. Do you think that all that stuff like helped, and being sober at this point, do you think that was something that hindered you? Because I imagine at that time, like drugs and booze and all that kind of stuff were very prevalent, but I feel like you don't need any of that to have a good time. And if I was drinking and you weren't and we were hanging out, I'd be like, this guy's awesome.
Yeah, well, you always get that sense in the back of your head, like, well, what if, would I be on Saturday Night Live or something 10 years ago if I could still like do a couple bumps or smoke some weed? Because I would take chances. There's no doubt about that. But I can't. Let's be honest. Steve-O and I have had this conversation a lot about how, because Steve-O has it more than anyone that's ever existed of like, if I get clean, will I still be able to be as good at my job as I was? Because his job was being a fucking lunatic,
Yeah. Also, I feel like the drugs probably helped out a lot because that dude's body just got so
broken.
fucked up. Yeah. Like,
so beat up.
Yep.
So, there is that feeling, but then at the end of the day, you realize like all the early mornings that were on the tail end of late nights and like editing tape and doing all the horrible stuff that I really just did and powered through. And when the alarm would go off and I'd be like, I've slept 14 hours this week and it's Friday, like I really, but you just if I had any, illicit substances in my body at any point, I would have given up.
Yeah.
There's no way I would have had the balls to kind of keep going. So I just remind myself of that. But it's like I remember I was doing this fill-in for a very big entertainment news show, right? And this producer's like, hey, dude, can you just like throw a smile on your face and stuff like that? I was like, I'm a smiley guy. I'm happy to be here and all that. He's like, yeah, but I could see it's like pulling teeth to talk about the story. I go, because it kind of is. He goes, why don't you be the Mike that I saw on when you were filling in for Regis? A lot of people like in the television world, they came into knowing me because I started filling in for Regis on Regis and Kelly. Now, Regis and Mark, or what Kelly and Mark, she does it with her husband. It was Michael Strahan for a while.
Yeah.
But this is back when Regis was still alive and still working. Legendary show, crazy viewership for the kind of the daytime talk area. And I started filling for Regis pretty consistently. And people would always be like, you're so magnetic and charismatic on that. And I go, you know why? Because they really genuinely asked me to be myself.
Yeah.
There's no teleprompter. And Kelly and I would talk about dating. I would talk to her about like the problems I'm having with this girl and her husband. And I'd talk about being in recovery and how weird it is when people recognize me at meetings, because that's something I never thought I would ever encounter. And we would talk. And so like all these weird experiences, Pat, that you were talking about, these crazy things that made my life seem so erratic, they all came in to be an asset in that. And as soon as I go and I'd work at Entertainment Tonight or I'd work at Access Hollywood and they asked me to do this story about Brie Larson, I go like, this all goes away because I'm now like there's 20 guys that could do this that are, they're not asking me to be myself and talk about this weirdness,
But do you think that that's like one of those things where like podcasts now are like that? Like podcasts aren't scripted.
Right.
Like we came in here and we just sat down and like started talking.
Right.
We actually talked for like 15 minutes beforehand with all that stuff, premium content, right? I wish we were recording, but we weren't. Like that stuff though, like the non-scripted, just BSing with your friends kind of thing, I think is gold. But when someone says you're going to do this, this, and this, then you're like, one, like, especially like that punk rock era, like fuck authority, don't tell me to do that. Like I'm going to do what I want to do because it's going to be better.
Yeah.
Like that's like a thing in the world.
There is kind of this like FU, I'm going to stick it to the man mentality. But at the same time, there's a part of it that's very childish and it's very mature because we all, in all aspects of life, there's parts of our jobs where you have to kind of eat shit and take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, and I would get, for instance, I was very good at being on the radio doing talk shows. Mm. I learned I could do that and I developed my skill and I worked hard to be eloquent, well-informed at the time and to have professional conversations. I was not a very good disc jockey, spinning records and stuff. There was a time when I would do that a lot, but I would see the guys and gals who are really good at it. And I'm like, I'm not good. And there's one reason why. Because for every 60 records I would spin, there would be one that I actually liked. And some of these people were so good at being like, the Killer's coming to town. They're going to be playing 2 nights in a row at the LA Forum. That's in August. Make sure you pick up the new album, Hot Fuzz. It's been out for 2 months. They're already at number 3 on the Billboard. There was no part of me that can go, hey, be a big boy. They're paying you to do a job. You're on the air right now. You can do that. You can do that. But I would always be like, can you believe the Red Hot Chili Peppers make more music? How is this real?
Tell us the song.
How are we playing this in 2012? This came out when I was a freshman.
Yeah.
And then Pennywise would come and I'd be like, bro, Pennywise. All right, here we go, bro. And I'm coming up after that.
Do you think
it was childish? It was childish. It's like, this is what I like, so I'm going to commit. I'm going to do. They paid me money. I should have had the fortitude to go like, someone's paying me to do a job and you need to do it, so yes, the authority thing was cool. But at the same time, it's like when I was out there on those TV shows and some, at certain points, I was like almost working too hard to be that guy. Yeah. When in actuality, there's a time and a place to just suck it up and go like, hey man, that's for you in your personal time. Those are your choices. But if someone has agreed to pay you money to do a job, do it well.
Especially if you accept the job, right?
Right.
Because you don't have to accept the job.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you just be like, I'm
you
not
can always
doing
walk
this.
away from it too. So
did you hate those? Like I hear like I listen to Joe Rogan and bands and stuff talking about all the time where if they were going to a certain town, like if Joe Rogan was going to do a show or a band was going to do a show, they would come on the local radio station. And a lot of times like you hear them like talk about it, like I fucking hated that.
It's terrible. And like there was a here we're talking about lowered standards again. But there's a reason why you can go around the country and you could see these people, Opie and Anthony and Stern and Bennington and down in Florida, Bubba the Love Sponge. There's a handful, a couple dozen people in that era in the 90s and early 2000s. They would separate because there was so much like blah 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 wacky sound effect blah blah blah. And if you're a band that like really cares about your music, it's got to be a nightmare to come in and it's be like blah blah. Tell us more about the album. Oh really? No, wacky. And so that was always in the back of my head, man. I was really lucky. Kevin and Bean, who's the morning show that I worked for, they were like seasoned veterans, and they always made it a point to understand. It's like they're doing Trent Reznor coming in at this hour in the morning it's him doing us a favor. Don't fucking confuse.
Yeah.
And look at it like the other way, okay? Dave Grohl, Chris Martin from Coldplay, and they would go out of their way to be like, I'm positive that he's been asked this 20 times just in the last couple of weeks, let alone in his life.
Yeah.
We're gonna go a different route, and
that's awesome.
And that always it inspired me too, because then when I started hosting LoveLine at night, I got a double whammy of luck because it's 10 o'clock at night, so you get a little bit more liberty from the FCC. And I'm taking calls about sex and addiction and sometimes, pretty profound abuse. So even if I have someone who's in there and who's like, I don't like doing radio, I can make this environment a lot more enjoyable than the average of like, what was the process of working with Flea? This has got to be amazing, right? I know you've been talking. I was like, some kid calls in about losing his virginity, and I'm sitting next to Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, and just be like, you mind me asking about when you lost your virginity? And he's like, yeah, that's, and you talk about how like sometimes you want it so bad and it actually ends up being kind of weird and you feel weird because you're a guy, so you should want it sex no matter what. And then you're having a conversation about real things. It's not a weird, this strange situation. When I ended on my time at Dancing with the Stars, you got to go on the late night shows, right? And I have no problem with it. I was just like, that's part of the deal.
Yeah.
And I remember being backstage and one of the guests was Kristen Bell and Jake Gyllenhaal. And I had just met Jake Gyllenhaal like 3 or 4 months earlier when I was filling in for Regis. And we started talking about like life, and it was enjoyable. And it was very lighthearted. And we're in the green room, and I'm not trying to like press up on them because I know they probably have people bug them a lot, but we were just talking about like traffic and the Dodgers and silly shit and just like life. We were having a conversation like normal people, and our posture was like this, and we were smiling. And then subsequently, because I was obviously the last person to go out because I'm the lowest on the totem pole, Jake goes out, Kristen Bell goes out, and there's this thing. They walk out, their publicist or their agent walks them out to do it, and then they go shunk, and they switch on to showbiz talk mode. Wow. Where I was like, oh, you're not. The bullet points that Jimmy Fallon's about to go into, and you have your canned answers that you don't want to say, but you got to do it over again because you're at work now.
Yeah.
Like, you're at work now.
Yeah.
We were just not. We were doing the same thing, but you were not at work. Now you're at work. And I was like, I got to figure out a way to keep it not work.
Yeah.
I
feel like that's also like the more interesting thing too. Like I think that's why podcasts have become so popular. Like it's we don't want the same canned responses. Like the 15 seconds that you get like on air with Jimmy Fallon or someone is like pointless because you're just gonna say the same thing on every show that you go to.
And also like,
true.
That shit's so canned and it's kind of corny. Like, and you can't have a real conversation when you have to have a commercial come in. Like every every 5 minutes there's like a commercial. You miss so much.
Pretty hefty.
Yeah, and that's like with like news, right? Like news is like, it's weird because they have someone on that they interview, but they're only getting a 5-minute interview. Like it's very difficult to get like bullet points across.
Imagine, right? If you guys came back from a tour from an Afghanistan, Iraq, the normal hotspots, and then you had a journalist sit you down and then go, please help me understand the nuances of the warfare in the situation.
5 minutes.
And then you're like, okay.
It's hard to get through the plane over there.
I'm very curious, sir. Please tell me about this. And you're like, okay, well, let me think. Go. And you're like, whoa. I have 2 minutes?
Yeah.
That's insane. I mean, it's an insane thing to think about.
And
like
you have to you're being rushed and you have to try to get all the important information across in that 5 minutes. I just think it's crazy, especially now seeing what people are doing. Like we just had a 53-minute long conversation about like
having conversations.
Yeah, right. So and we're just bullshitting. You're telling us information about your life and stuff, but we're just bullshitting.
Yeah.
Like now, we had to do that in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I've had to do it. It's weird. It's really weird. Like I mean, especially about stuff because I'm not an expert in it in much. I remember being on CNN and there was a lot of discussion about like police brutality, and I'd be in those it was like a panel show. They get to me, and I would say on live TV to the insane ire of the people who are paying me. I mean, they have the IFB in, and they're like, "Will you go? Okay, move away," and I'd be like, "Why are you asking me this? I've never ever for 1 second been in law enforcement."
Yeah.
And every time I was on the other end of law enforcement, it was definitely my fault. It was always, and I gotta be honest, police have always treated me, even when I was breaking law, police have always been really nice to me. You know why? I'm fucking delightful. I go like, yeah, I got drugs in my pocket and I'm driving drunk. I'm really sorry, officer. Take me to jail. I know. Shit. I don't like this, but
Oh my god.
this is bad and it's my fault and I chose to do this. You know? Like,
It's so honest of you.
Yeah, 100%. So
Like, why beat around the bush, right?
yeah.
So, like, I've been. Damn it. When did you start? Like, when did the fitness thing happen?
Yeah.
Like the fitness
Yeah.
and like, because you're talking about relationships and all this other stuff, but when did the fitness, jiu-jitsu, like
Fighting.
Thai? Like, I know that you did Muay Thai because those shorts they're getting
Sick.
pretty old, bud.
The shins are so hard.
Yeah.
Well, that's from being on my knees in the bathhouse.
Gotta make that money though.
Yeah. It's a good question. It was always something that I always really weirdly had this fascination with, like, people talk about like self-help and self-betterment, right? And they have these seminars but I never, like, it was weirdly magical to me that, like, you could make more, you could do these things and, like, your muscles would grow and, like, your fat would go. I was like, this is great. Like, I could build armor. It would make me confident. And also I grew up in that era. You could probably relate to this. When you turn on a movie, or you went to the movie theater,
Yeah.
and Schwarzenegger walks out for the first time in The Predator, and he does the, like, bro hand thing where their biceps are flexing with Carl Weathers, and you're like, oh.
People still, that's still a meme. People still do that today.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. But so you got so heavy, and so I think that there's a thing, right? Because, like, I have a very addictive personality, and it did not serve me well in my teen years.
Sure.
But now that, like, whenever I joined the Army, I was like, I'm going to work out. And, like, I kind of got addicted to jiu-jitsu. But
Yeah.
it was like one of those things where it's like healthy. So I just pushed towards that.
Yeah, if you can keep it as a healthy addiction, it absolutely was. Look, I got, like, my level of use of caffeine and my amount of investment into fitness was no different than my drug use. It just happened to be something that people socially accepted.
Yeah.
Because I went too far. I've many times gone too far. I dieted down too much. I had used too much steroids. I would train too much. I would forego doing things that were fun because I was like, gotta go squat.
Yeah,
Gotta go squat.
I know that you probably disagree with this now, but there's some people that would say you can't do too much, which is crazy.
You absolutely can.
Yeah, but also, like, we have a guy in this building that I don't think has ever hit that point.
But, you know, I'm pretty sure I know you.
Mr. Tim Kennedy.
He also, I've never seen it, and as someone, I know Tim, but we're not close enough that I can follow him around all day. But I never see Tim's fitness and combat sports, which is sizable, his investment into it. It never, like, takes away from his happiness. Like, it seems like that's where Tim needs to be the best Tim. And that's what I always say about it. Like, people ask me the question because I'm very adamant about repeating this over and over again about, like, there is too much.
Yeah.
If you're not getting a paycheck for being shredded, there's too much. Like, stop it with this. And people ask me, like, how do you know? I go, here's how you know. When eating and training isn't making your life better, there's something wrong. Yeah. That's what this is supposed to do. It's supposed to be enhancing your life. As soon as it starts taking away from the quality of your life, you've gone too far.
Yeah, I can see that.
Also, there's that detriment though that happened. Like, again, we talked about football and CTE. There's that detriment that happened, like, down the road. Like, what's Ronnie Coleman now? Like, it's so sad. Like, that guy, like, getting around and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he was living a great life when it happened, but that guy used to do lunges with, like, 315 on his back or 225 on his back, and now
Pretty sick.
He's got this. It's like, man,
He was just in Texas. There was just like a gym opening. He was
in
there.
Round Rock at
Yeah.
Iron Forge Gym. Yeah. Ronnie is cautionary tale, but we can also talk about Dorian Yates and look at Arnold, and you know what I'm saying. There's
100%.
There's a way to do it, and be very high level without. And the same goes with if you're not getting a paycheck for fighting, like, dude, you don't need to be taking head kicks. What are we? You know what I'm saying?
So
Like,
fact, or if your paycheck is like me when I was getting like 200 and 200 to show, like, is it worth it? Like, so at that point there was no way I was getting the use. I was too old, and I was like, fuck this, I'm done. Like, I'm
and
out.
it's some people, it's very hard, and this is one of those things that you can't really talk about and get much sympathy. You might get interest from other men,
Yeah.
but you're not. In today's day and age, it's hard to do these things where you go like, oh, well, this is the actual plight of the man. Is like knowing when your life outside of the professional arena needs to come first, because you're always going to go back and forth. It's like, do I have a relationship with my kid? I know I'm a provider. I have a good job and I work hard and I make good money, but I'm gone all the time. And when I'm here, I'm kind of detached because I'm thinking about my work and how I can make more money. And you go, okay, that admirable. We all ambition and hard work and discipline. Amazing. But what is this doing to my personal life? Then it's like, well, if I invest too much, it's almost hedonistic to be like, well, this is me. I don't like to go to a 9 to 5, so I'm not going to do it. And I just want to spend as much time with my kids as possible, and I'm going to be her best friend. And it's like, no, like, what are you doing? Pull your shit together.
Yeah, it's one of the things I hate is when you see like a dad and his son, they dress the same and they talk to each other like they're best friends. Like
Never seen
I didn't grow up with that. Like I grew up with a dad that was like mean, big biker dude. Like, no, we're friends now, but
Yeah.
me growing up, there was no friendship. It was father, son. And I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
And I noticed as I got like older and older, like now we're like we're their best friends. Like,
It's really dangerous. And social media has made it worse because now people are doing the like, here's the dance video with me and my daughter. Watch this. And I'm like, I understand, like, in your mind, I don't think you're an evil person. I don't think you're like manipulating your child. But I do think like this whole thing of like mom and daughter and dad, like dad and kid, like we're buds. And it's like, no, I love my daughter. I love hanging out with her. We are close. We're not friends. I'm your dad.
yeah.
And there's going to be like, I hope that none of your friends ever have a point where they switch and talk to you and go, this is fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
And you cannot do this anymore. I will do that. There will be, trust me, there will be points where, because I love you so much, I don't want to see you make that choice.
So going back, like hard segue back, but going back to like when you started doing jiu-jitsu and you started lifting weight, like, so you started lifting first, of course, like everybody does. And then like Muay Thai was like, or kickboxing was like the first like real martial art, like you dove into.
And it was me and Orlando Sanchez. We grew up in the same area, and I got to know Orlando really well because he's a wild man, but he was also way into lifting weights, bodybuilding and powerlifting. And we would go to Gold Gym in Pasadena together, and we were close. And then he met Walter, the sleeper, Crew Walter from Sit Yad Tong out in LA, and he got Orlando into Muay Thai. He's like, yeah, bro, I fucking got to do this with you. And I was like, as long as you're not like kicking me with your fucking tree stuff, like,
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
So I got out there, and I really liked Muay Thai. I really liked it. I didn't think because I'm not. I know going in, I'm not a fighter. And I'm not a gigantic puss, but I'm not a fighter.
Yeah.
But I loved like the tradition and the ways of Muay Thai, like the classical Muay Thai, and like how much clinching. It wasn't kickboxing. I was used to seeing like Dutch and American style kickboxing. And I was like, it's really about clinching and close quarters and very steeped in Thai tradition. I loved it. Started doing that. Then Orlando started doing jiu-jitsu with Alberto Crane. And so quickly he got so good. And he's like, you got to come roll with me.
Yeah, because you can't armbar, choke, or leg lock him. It's real easy to get good if you're built like a fucking brick.
It is. But even against other big guys, like so quickly he got good. And he's like, and then he actually started becoming the head instructor at the gym he was working at with Alberto Crane. And he's like, come in whenever you want, just come train with me. And he got me into jiu-jitsu. And that was like that was when that kind of became a facet.
How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
Way too long to be a purple belt. 16 years.
Wow.
Damn, dude, that's longer than me.
Yeah. But there was like big gaps because it was times when, it's different now, but in 2012, if I went away for work and I was filming in British Columbia, I couldn't just pop into a jiu-jitsu. Nowadays, you get like all over the world, people be like, oh, I'm going to go train. And so I would try to keep my best to keep up with fitness, but then there was big blocks. And then of course, COVID in Los Angeles, you couldn't jiu-jitsu. There wasn't even people like underground training. It was like, you couldn't be in the same room as people.
Was that so what was the catalyst for you to come to Texas? Like, was that it?
Lockdown.
For
sure.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, people always talk about, money's obviously always going to be an issue. The taxation and things, I started to see the financial differences. But what really broke the camel's back, not only for me, more so for my wife, because I was always really into the idea of moving into a place where we could have a little more space. But my wife finally broke her seal on the idea of moving away from LA, because my wife's an actor, so justifiably she did feel tethered to Los Angeles. Yeah. When the lockdown started happening, and it was how the state of California started to treat our kid, and it got so fascist, like, I mean, it's so almost totalitarian. It's like, you will learn to, we're not going to say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore, and police might be scary to some students, so there's going to be no cops on campus anymore. It's like, well, not scary to my kid. More cops, in fact, do seminars with cops if you want. Yeah. Have them just walking around talking to kids, as far as I'm fucking concerned.
Yeah. By the way, that seems like the way to make them less scared of cops.
It's true.
Yeah, let's alienate them. Don't talk to them. Have no personal relationship, and see how that goes.
That's an amazing point. And when you talk about groups of people not getting along, that I'll take the Pepsi challenge. I grew up in one of the most diverse environments there is. A guy that looks like you, was by far the minority in my name.
That makes sense.
And I got to a pretty good, comfortable place, I think, with all different types of people. But it didn't come from anybody telling me anything, and it certainly didn't come from any type of course or book, anything I could intellectually consume. It was impossible. It came from interacting with different groups of people.
Yeah.
And there's that guy, I forget I think Daryl is his name, but he's a black guy. He's a blues musician, and his purpose, he's been on Rogue and he does the rounds. His purpose is to take the hoods from Klansmen.
Oh yeah.
And he's a black guy, and he's like, what, people always ask him, well, what's the secret? He's like, just talk to him. 9 out of 10 of these guys go, I've actually never interacted with a black guy who I hate so much, but I've never actually done this. Yeah. And you go like, oh, you're a human like me. And although we might have been wildly different cultures and different lifestyles, when it boils down to it, we all pretty much have the same. Yeah. That was my favorite part about King of the Hill, was that this was such a patently kind of West Texas show, right? King of the Hill, and he's selling his propane, and I'm about football, right? But when you'd watch it, you could be a fucking lesbian in Manhattan, just a environmental activist at Berkeley. You watch King of the Hill, and you really realize it's like, I just want to be respected by my family. I want to have a place in the world where people think I'm a good guy, and it's hard. And you're like, oh, we all have the same major concerns. It's like we're all dealing with the same shit. And so like that was the main point of A Clockwork Orange. The one thing that I thought didn't get transferred over into the movie as well as it was portrayed in the book, or it was explained in the book, was that they put him through this process of like prying his eyes open and showing this imagery of horrific violence so that it would get it out of him, right? At the end of the movie, the priest is talking, and he's like, "Oh, I'm right as rain. Oh, can't wait to get back into society. Just peaceful, man." And the priest is like, "Are you sure? Are you sure? Because that's not learned. Yeah. Being compassionate, being loving, that's not something you learn to do. That's something that you become. Yeah. It's something that you develop from being loving, having the experiences of being loving and being loved, So that, like, I really dislike the idea of hoping to unify people by leading with division. You know what I'm saying? Like, there needs to be more black only this. There needs to be more, what about, we hear people like, white lives matter too. It's like, yeah, we know. We got that. I mean, stop. How about this? Like, the other day, this girl asked me, like, since you had a daughter, have you become a feminist? And I go like, no. And I wasn't one before. And I go, I'm a humanist. Yeah. I really care about people doing well. And I hate the idea of unnecessary struggle, because we're all going to have a built-in level of struggle. There's a default level that we're going to deal with as humans, some more than others, but you're going to have your heart broken. Someone you love more than anything is going to die. Struggle is part of the deal. Someone that you love more than my wife and I My wife and I have an incredibly good marriage, and I love her to death. There's been moments where I wanted to throw her out a fucking window, and it's a struggle. And so when people engage in struggle that they don't need to, when people have more trauma and struggle imposed on them that is above and beyond the average, the ordinary struggle that we're all going to have to deal with, it genuinely bothers me. And I don't really think about whether that is a man or a woman, or if it's a black person or a white person, or if it's a Jew or a Catholic. I just think, like, I hate that. I hate that idea of it, you know?
Yeah.
Just the extra singling out of different people because they're perceived as worse than, you don't know anyone's story just by their race or color of their skin.
You don't. And we were talking about before the show, and I think you made a very, like, an incredibly important point, that especially in this country, I don't know how it is in other countries in the West, but in this country, you're kidding yourself if you think that the only color that doesn't matter is green.
Yeah.
Because the real division is, I had that hit me like a ton of bricks one time. I was playing baseball in high school, and I grew up in the Pasadena area, and it's a very strange area because there is like super incredible high level public schools in the same, like 10 miles away. There's the most ghetto, the worst.
Fucking Houston, bro, is just that.
Houston, yeah, it's very similar.
Houston, you'll be in like a really nice neighborhood, and then you'll be like, oh shit, Pitbull, fuck.
And by the way, don't think that I'm saying, again, we're not talking, I'm not even, because there's Pasadena High School, which had exclusively black basketball team dunking on you. A lot of kids going to go. Then right there, there's John Muir. Everyone sucks. All, they had no, because the coaches were shit. The facilities were shit. So we're playing Blair High School, which is, by the way, the alma mater of Herb Dean. And I go up to the plate, and the catcher's talking to me. Not even talking shit, just chit-chatting. And he goes, we're saying something. And he goes, yeah, it's my kid over there. And there's a girl, a teenage girl with a baby watching the game. And I'm like, whoa. I was like 16. Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
And I looked over at my family watching the game, and I was, this is different. Bizarre. And so I get into this as a simple mind. I'm like, man, black people's lives is different than mine. But then went to a fucking baseball tournament like 6 months later. No, football. It was a touch league in preparation for regular season, and was in the high desert out like where I would end up buying meth 3 or 4 years later. And there's a bunch of white trash dudes, and they all had their kids. Yep. And I was like, oh, this is a poor people thing, not a, and and people are like, the justice system is unfair to black men and Hispanic men. And I go, okay, maybe, but I'm pretty sure Jay-Z and George Lopez would do just fine in court because they have the money to buy a good attorney. Yep. Yeah. That's all that matters in the end.
So I grew up in, I went to like the poor high school.
Yeah.
Right. And our rival high school was Derby, but they were like the rich school, like the greaser. It's like was 100% like the greases and socias, right? Where like Derby was like the socias and we were like the greasers, and they just kicked our ass at all sports except for wrestling.
Yeah.
Because you didn't need a whole lot to be fucking good at like you didn't need to pay coaches a whole bunch of money. You didn't need that shit. You just needed mean fucking kids with hand-me-down wrestling shoes.
Yeah, who really helps though.
Who didn't give a fuck.
Yeah,
what helps though is when we've been wrestling since you were 4.
He nailed it. they do that every fucking episode.
Running joke.
Yeah. I know. So like,
I rolled with you. It does help.
Yeah. So like, you're 100% right. Like to your point, where it's the only thing that really matters is money, and that separates people.
There is I don't want to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth though, but there is still, regardless of your wealth or your status, there is a scarlet letter that I think as a Mexican American, there is a scarlet letter, a special kind of weird thing that does happen with being black, regardless of how wealthy you are. You're wrong if you think that me or you or Nick walk into liquor store before training to go get an energy drink or something.
They have those at liquor stores?
Yes.
I haven't been to a liquor store so long.
And a black kid walks in. Same, like there's trust me, they're like, the store owners are always like, what's going on over here? And they don't know how much money that kid makes. They don't know if that kid is in college or if that kid's a ghetto. There's a weird thing, like driving while black. Even cops talk about it. It's like, it's a thing. It is a thing, So I don't know how much that plays into the oppression overall, but it absolutely exists still. It's a weird thing that we have to puncture somehow.
Yeah. Speaking of puncturing, you went to Protector One.
I did.
Hard fucking segue, everybody. Protector One, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. After, like, because the cool thing is, like, you've trained, you've done a whole bunch of stuff, like, you're fit. Kind of. I'm just joking.
Do you want me to show you my abs?
No. And
after the show.
you train a bunch.
Yeah.
Right. So what did you think? I realized that the jiu-jitsu stuff that you saw was all basic, self-defense stuff. But how did you think that the initial like situational awareness brief that you received Friday, like, did you take some stuff away from that? Because again, you've done a lot, you have a lot of life experiences, but did you take some stuff away from that?
Yes. Even little things can make a huge impact when you're talking about weapons being involved. Okay. Wearing your ear pods, walking down the street with staring at your phone, not a good idea. Like, really not a good idea. I'm not saying don't listen to your favorite podcast. I'm not saying don't listen to Mikey Likes You. Every week a new podcast, the greatest health and fitness podcast there is.
Yeah.
What I am saying is like tuning out from society can be, I don't care if you're Pat, like that can be the difference right there. It's like that 1 second where you're looking down at your phone instead of keeping your eye open to the guy that's approaching you to shank you in the belly. You know what I mean? When weapons are involved, the margin of error is so little. It was very eye-opening to me, even especially on the mats, because I went in and I was telling Nick before the show, one of the weirdest experiences coming from the Protector One course was getting a chance to roll with people who have zero experience.
Yep.
I've never done that. I'm sure you as a coach have had that experience. It was so weird because I know going in, if I roll with either of you two, like I don't stand, I know I have enough self-awareness. I've trained enough to know how little I know, and you guys are going to smash me, and it's only a matter, you're just deciding not to tap me, and when you want to, you will. But I had never been in a position where I had that on another person.
You had that. So again, jiu-jitsu it's like having a superpower.
I went home and I told my wife, I was like, I don't know how to sound like, I don't want to sound like one of these wannabe tough guy, but it was like I was a wizard that was doing magic on them that they couldn't figure out. And some of these guys were big and fit, and like one guy was a cop. He was a tough dude, and just like his ability, if I asserted top position, like he would try to muscle out of it. And I was like, I'm gonna break your arm, dude. Like
this is useless.
It's like like putting a gun to someone's head and say, hey, read those hieroglyphics, and you're the one holding the gun and writing the hieroglyphics. Right? Like you can't understand it until you get into it. Even so, again, Protector One's awesome. You learn a lot of stuff, but I always tell people, like, when they're done with Protector One, like, you need to go learn jiu-jitsu. If you got your ass kicked today, you need to go learn jiu-jitsu.
And that's what I will say, and I mean this with the most sincere level of caring. If you're a cop and you don't know how to any judo or jiu-jitsu or wrestling, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah. So
you're fucking crazy.
You know Erin? Erin, she trains.
Yes.
So her husband was a cop in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Not a great place to be a fucking cop.
No, it's rough.
Yeah.
Rough.
And so he started jiu-jitsu because someone like tackled him down and like tried to wrestle his gun away. And like, I think they got it. He ended up, I mean, he's all right. He's alive now.
Yeah.
But like, that was like his, like, I'm going to do jiu-jitsu now.
Yeah.
I need to know more than this.
Because like, even just like, I watch a lot. One of my new favorite things is like body cam videos. Cause I don't like it because I of the violence. I'm not into like the world star guy getting his head stomped in.
What about that? What about that acorn video?
Acorn video.
No, I'm not.
Jesus Christ.
What I am into,
Gotta fight
though,
with the squirrel.
I love delusional people. It was the funniest shit ever listening to this girl try to explain away how she has generational PTSD, and that's why it was okay for her to drive in the wrong lane, go in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And she was drunk driving the wrong direction, but she didn't kill anybody. And the cop was so good, and I love that, right? But every once in a while, I'll come across these videos of guys not even fighting the cop, just getting the handcuffs on, because it became such a challenge. Because I was like, oh, that guy, he's trying to create distance when right now he should be smashing his head into the back of that guy's shoulder, closing the distance. Like, I would just think, like, if law enforcement, because it's one of the things, I grew up, like I told you, I grew up in a very safe kind of pedestrian world, suburban world, but drugs got me access to real gangsters. And they're out there. And a lot of these people who are very vehemently anti-gun and super pacifists, I understand the desire. It probably comes from a good place. But I was like, I don't think you're aware
Of reality?
of evil dudes are out all over with guns, and they're not afraid to shoot other people.
So-
you know?
Like those dudes at the Kansas City Chiefs rally? Yeah. That was over an argument.
Yep.
This dude just got mad at some dude. He started shooting at the crowd, killed like 4 or 5 people because he was pissed off at some other guy.
And who was the guy, he almost beat John Jones, Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith had people break into his house. He's a light heavyweight badass. And he's like, I had a hard time defending my family because this guy was just nuts. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, like, if that's him, am I going to think like as a casual purple belt, like I'm going to be able to defend my family without a gun? You're fucking high.
Yeah.
You know?
What did you think about the second day when you did you rolled with the knives and the guns?
It kind of scared me. And it opened my eyes a lot because, as I was saying, weapons close that gap of that margin of error so much. My guts would have been all over the mats, even though I was fighting for a better position. Fine, but then a guy put a gun to my head. Then a guy put a knife in my side. You know, like.
So it's one of those things too, where like the jiu-jitsu helps, right? Like, I think jiu-jitsu is the best like martial art to learn, and you can like rolling with like knives, like changes the game completely because now I think that position is more important than submission because my position is going to control that weapon. When I get that weapon, I'm not going to rear naked choke you because I'm just going to stab you 15 times. Every time we do that, I never start with a weapon. Just so the person I'm going with, I'm like, hey, I don't have a weapon. They're like, okay. And then it's good for me too, but I practice just taking the weapon from them and then stabbing them 67 times and I'll give it back to them.
Yeah.
Just so they know that like, hey, like your level, there are people out there like me. It's a good thing I'm a good guy, but there are people out there like me where like what you're doing now isn't going to be enough.
Yeah.
You have to do more.
Yeah. And it's really good to get across to people. Another thing too is like when out at the range, I had an experience when I got into hunting where the first experience I had with hunting was I was young, maybe 11, and I went hunting in Italy with a bunch of Italians, and I speak zero Italian, and they just literally handed me a shotgun, and they're like, "Let's go, we are going to walk," and they were like, if they saw a pig, they're like, "Shoot it." And that was my intro into hunting. And then I went hunting with real hunters who had etiquette, who had understanding of firearms, who had respect for the animals. And I was like, oh, this is a whole different ballgame. And where I'm going with this was Yako and Tori and all the other instructors who had, many of them, been into numerous hot zones and gun battles and then come back to do hours and hours and hours and hours of tactical training and had become real samurais with weapons. They still do 3-point checks. Yep. They still treat every gun like it's loaded. Even if we know like the slide is back, we can see there's no magazine in it. They're still like, let's go, eyes and ears, and pointing the muzzle away. Like when it comes to being good, there's a standard that is held that is so high that I think people should know that. Like there is a reverence that just because they became like these samurais with firearms, that made them more careful than it did make them brazen or kind of dismissive with the weapon.
Yeah, something that people don't understand too is like so let's say you deploy for like I did a deployment to Iraq that was 15 fucking months long. It was horrible. I spent the year before that prepping for that deployment. People are saying like, oh, they think that we just deployed. No, the year before you go there, maybe 9 months of that, you're prepping to get ready to go. Mm-hmm. And all that safety stuff is instilled in you because there'd be nothing worse than you accidentally shooting your buddy.
Yeah.
And that is just ingrained. And like when you're like training for deployment, like you're shooting right next to each other and you're moving. These guys are moving. These guys are flanking. So the weapons manipulation and weapons safety is so important. Like think about it in like a home defense scenario, right? Like if someone comes in my bedroom, like I know that I can't shoot this way or over because if I shoot that way, the bullet might go through that dude into my daughter.
Yeah.
So like just like conceptually just thinking about those things whenever you're in your house will help you improve situational awareness, safety, and the ability to eliminate a threat.
I also think like years of training, specifically in jiu-jitsu, because it's such a detail-oriented martial art. It made me, there was no sense of like ego when they would come over and just, because I have basic etiquette, my finger was never in the trigger guard unless I was going to fire, little things like that. Always muzzles, always pointing somewhere safe. But when I get in and prepare to shoot, like Tori would walk over and just move my left hand thumb 3 centimeters to get it in a different place. And my groupings got way smaller. Yep. Like there's so much detail stuff that goes into being excellent compared to just being proficient, Yeah.
And again, like it's the fact that you have so much respect for like a firearm and there's so many people out there that don't.
Yeah.
Right. Like that thing could kill people.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. And like I think too, that the respect for the firearm and then respect for human life, like caring enough to be so cautious, just even when you're at a range, like that you're that safe.
Yeah.
And that you're that like deliberate and intentional with everything that you do. And again, I think that we have the best instructors in the world at our course, and also Matt Smith. Like again,
true on both points.
Yeah, like he is crazy. But I went to Protector 1 where I started working here, and I was like, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
Like it's different than most courses you go to. Most courses you go to, you can do 1 day of shooting and there's no jiu-jitsu, no self-defense, or the self-defense that they show you is bullshit.
Yeah.
You come here, no, you fight.
Yeah.
Like you're going to figure out if the things that you think you know or not.
There's numerous black belts. There was numerous different disciplines different branches of the military. There was numerous representatives from law enforcement out, to give you like this very comprehensive understanding of what you're doing.
Yeah. What's the bald guy's name that has like, he has the handlebar? He's
Brendan.
Brendan. Brendan is like, he's like a purple belt, but like he is legit. He's a great instructor. Like that
blue belt.
Yeah.
He smashed me.
Yeah, he smashed
me.
He's also built like Orlando, not as big as
Yes.
Orlando Sanchez, but you shrink him down 100%. But hey, this was an amazing podcast.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
I
for
really
coming
enjoyed
on.
myself. Of course, it was my pleasure.
Yeah. Something that I did not do earlier that I need to do right now is, hey guys, defense wipes and defense soap. If you go to defense wipes or if you go to defense soap, you can get 15% off if you put an SDR15. Support them because they support us. Mike,
yes,
thank you for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, well, I know this is a
great.
hard exit, but like I have to be in jiu-jitsu at like 10 minutes.
You do, yes.
So I have to go. I have to change.
He has to go smash you.
Yeah.
He's gonna get rubber bands for his beard.
Yeah. No, I'm not there yet. I'm not gonna. So thank you for coming on, bud. Thank you for going to Protector 1, and hopefully we can have you back on sometime.
Anytime. Anything for you guys. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Yeah, that was
thank
awesome,
you.
Mike.
Do you want to plug your socials?
Oh yes, at Mike Catherwood is always the best place to get me on Instagram and stuff like that. And then the podcast is Mikey Likes You, and I try my best to make it a really enjoyable podcast for the person who's stepped on stage, shredded, and to the person who's just getting into exercise. I think I try my best to make it enjoyable for everyone.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks so much,
Thank
man.
you.
Guys,
Thank you.
thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.
Goodbye.